I don't really mean to be Debbie Downer, but I'm just thinking about the timeline of when you were in Global. You technically would have been there when Kerry passed away, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Kerry and Bobby were really good friends. Bobby was the nicest guy, and Bobby was
Duncum Jr. You're saying.
Bobby Duncum Jr. I'm sorry, yeah, Bobby Duncum Jr. Bobby and I were roommates. We were roommates in Garland, and Bobby was. Man, I love Bobby. I did the eulogy at his funeral when Bobby passed away. Unfortunately, I wish Bobby was still around. Certain things you miss. Guys like Bobby and Eddie. You wish were still around. But Bobby was such a nice guy, and Bobby had this innate charisma about him. But he was an incredible athlete. He and Kerry were really tight, and they went out a lot together. And they had a lot of fun together. Kerry was fun. He was a fun human being. So Kerry disappeared, and Bobby looked at me. We're roommates, and he goes, "Kerry shot himself in the chest." I said, "Why do you say that?" He goes, "Well, he told me a month ago that he jokingly said, if I shoot myself, it'll be in the chest, not in the head. I want an open casket. I'm too vain." And he was just joking. But then Kerry got busted, I think, with a little bit of drugs or something. And I don't think Kerry was going to prison, but there was a chance he was. And Kerry was very big on public perception. Kerry thought he had let down his fans, and Kerry thought that Kerry thought he might be going to prison, and he could have handled the prison time, but he couldn't handle letting down his fans. And so when Bobby knew he was gone, Bobby said he shot himself in the chest, and sure enough, they found him a day or two later, and he had shot himself in the chest.
My God, how sad.
Kevin, he called Kevin, and Kevin's told me the story. Kevin and I rode together. I've told you our friendship with Kevin. He called Kevin and said, "Hey, I just want to say goodbye." And Kevin's, tried to talk him out of it. He goes, "Wait till I get there." And Kevin told him, "Hey, when you die, this happens." He goes, "Well, I'll leave a note." They're just joking. The Von Erich boys, from my understanding, they believe life just kind of continued after death. That was not the end. That was the beginning. He thought he would see his brothers and, be someplace and things were going to be fun, and so it wasn't like he was just ending things. It was almost like he was going into a transition, and Kevin drove, 1,000 miles an hour trying to get to Kerry, but obviously he didn't make it in time.
My God, what a sad story.
It was sad. That's why I never watched the movie The Von Erichs. I lived it.
You never saw it.
Never saw it. I've seen it. I was there. I lived the whole thing, and not that I'm against the whole thing. I know some friends that were in it, and James Beard was in it, but I don't have a desire to see it. I lived it.
They had a memorial show for Kerry, didn't they?
Yeah, sure did. That Friday night. I've talked to a lot of people who said they were supposed to be on that memorial show. Apparently, there's about 1,000 people that were booked on that show from all the people that said they were on the show or supposed to be there, which, typical revisionist BS. But, yeah, they brought in the Von Erichs. They brought in – Sid came in. First time I met Sid. Brought in a whole bunch of talent. First time I got to meet Fritz, who was just wonderful. I mean, you talk about a guy with an aura around him that, like, holy shit, this guy's something special, man. Had these massive big hands, and come in and shake hands with you. Nicest man in the world. And, it was the memorial for Kerry. Bobby, I'm not sure who Bobby and I wrestled. I was trying to find it on Cage Match. We weren't listed, and we were there, but I don't remember who he wrestled or anything like that. But I remember meeting Fritz for the first time, and Sid. Sid was just this huge mountain of a man. And, it was sad. We went to Kerry's funeral. They had his robe there and all this stuff. And, man, Dallas, it's like Dallas shut down when Kerry passed away. It was remarkable, the love that people had for Carrie Von Eric. I remember, Conrad, I was sitting in an old country club down there just with some friends, a little small country club in Athens, Texas. Somebody told a story and said, man, that guy's a celebrity, like a Von Erich. And this is 30 years after Kerry died. That's how big Von Erichs were in Texas.
It's been said over the years that the Ultimate Warrior was allegedly supposed to be on that Carrie Von Eric tribute show, but no showed. Did you hear that at the time?
I don't remember. And I read that, and I don't remember if the Warrior was supposed to be, obviously the Dingo Warrior was a big deal in Dallas. They got him started. and I don't remember when I read that in the notes, it kind of struck a little bit of a nerve with me that maybe that happened, but I don't dispute that claim. But I can't remember if he was supposed to be there or not.
We got to talk a little bit about, when you're thinking about Dallas and you're thinking about global, everybody always thinks about, the way this thing came to an end. But you mentioned in passing that you met Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think that there would be an opportunity to work with Fritz, or did you know that, hey, he's completely out of this? And what was your expectation when you met Fritz? Did you think that, how did you regard him at that moment, I guess is what I'm looking for, and just his status in the business? Because it's always been weird that he's sort of in the business, but not really at this point. I mean, I know he's out and he's doing things, outside of wrestling, but when he sold to Jerry Jarrett, it was like he gave allegedly Jerry the heads up that, hey, my boys are going to mess this up. They're not business guys. But I've always been under the impression that he was still sort of keeping an eye on it. Did you ever have any inclination to think that he might actually get back into promoting, or was he heartbroken at that point based on the way things had turned out? What can you tell us about Fritz?
I talked to Akbar a lot about Fritz, and Ak and Fritz were very close. And so I had a pretty good feel about what Fritz was thinking and what Fritz was going to or not going to do. And I didn't think he was coming back, because when he got out. And, David was the one that wanted to go national, from what I understand, and not Fritz. Fritz did not want to, even though they had the best show there was. They had more cameras. They had the ring mic'd up. And Fritz was groundbreaking in the stuff he did in the Sportatorium. He was a very, very smart guy. But when David passed away and then the territory kind of slipped from him, Fritz didn't have a desire to do it again. And he did not want to go national. He did not want to compete with Vince. He did not want to have to compete with, other promoters. He was very, very old school. When I met him, it was very similar to like the day I got to meet Tom Landry. It was Coach Landry. His son was a part owner, I think, in the San Antonio team. And I got to meet Coach Landry one time. And I just remember walking up and going, my God, man, this guy was with George Hallis. This guy was, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. I'm meeting Tom freaking Landry. I went up and shook his hand. He was just the nicest man. Meeting Fritz was the same. It was my childhood idol, the same as Coach Landry. And I got to meet him, and, I'm trying not to be the mark that I am. And, he knew it was special to me because the way I got up and went over and shook his hand in the dressing room. And it was just so cool to be sitting there holding the hand of, Fritz Von Erich, that Iron Claw, and being able to meet him and being able to talk to him just, at least superficially. Obviously in a very bad situation. It was a Carrie's memorial, but he was just nice as he could be to the guys. He went around and spoke to everybody. I mean, just an overwhelmingly nice man, but the figure that he carried, it was similar to Landry in the fact that when he walked in a room, whether you knew him or not, you knew that was somebody special.